Township Board of Supervisors meeting, April 13, 2022. We will start with some announcements. In accordance with Resolution 2-2012, Scott Stilson, Vincent Drive is live streaming tonight's meeting. This meeting will also be available on the Zoom platform and is being recorded electronically. We also want to announce that the Board of Supervisors met in an executive session on April 6th at 6 p.m. to discuss legal matters pertaining to Telhi. Next, we'll move on to the open forum for action items on the agenda. If anybody in the room has any comments on anything on the agenda?
Can I just have a minute to, I got like 15 pages here, just to see what, are you talking about the Wednesday, April 13, 2022 thing?
Yes, ma'am.
Paper? Okay, thank you.
There's no comments, then there's nobody on Zoom.
Correct.
So-
Nobody can Zoom.
So we'll move forward to the consent agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve the entire consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We'll move on to department reports. First is Don Johnson.
He's not here, but Christie has his report.
Don wanted everyone to know the roads crew has been fixing yards that were damaged by plowing over the winter. And they replaced a guardrail that sustained damage from an accident during a wintertime incident. They are cleaning drainage pipes of debris, and they are getting ready to start ditching various roads throughout the township. On a separate note, unrelated to township roads, PennDOT announced that they were repairing potholes on Cambridge Road this week. So some folks did see trucks out there. On our website, there is a state roads tab, and there's a place you can actually go and look at the PennDOT website to see what their project schedule is. That's great.
Don't, on that schedule, it doesn't show 2021 projects, and that's Route 10. So that's going to be done this summer. So if you go to the site, the only thing you'll see is 2026 Chestnut Tree Road for Brook. So this summer, expect to see some work on Route 10. That's confirmed by that.
Okay, awesome. That's all I have for a dog.
Thank you.
Thank you. Christie, you're up next.
John McHugh attended the Twin Valley Fire Department Volunteer Appreciation Dinner this last Saturday, and there met up with State Representative Tim Hennessy, as well as a member of the Honeybrook Alverson EMS, Steve Jones. So those pictures are up on the website. John and I will be at the Pennsylvania State Association of Township Supervisors, or PSATS for short, convention in just a couple of weeks. Related to that, I have registered for the PSATS Municipal Government Academy graduate program. I've already completed 12 of the required 60 credits. Just a note on the schedule, because this information came in after the agenda was posted, but the zoning hearing number 2022-3 will be continued to Monday, April 25th at 6:30 p.m. here in this room. And the board will be discussing a variance application under new business tonight that we don't, as a close of business today, do not have a date yet for that hearing, but it will be either May 9th or May 16th, so we'll have to stay tuned on that. Lastly, the township offices will be closed Friday in observance of Good Friday. And that's all I have.
Does this mean we have to throw the graduation party?
Well,
You brought it up.
I do like cake.
You was okay. Go get cupcakes.
All right, next is Township Manager Warren Henke.
Yes, thank you. I have submitted my manager's report, and when I say I mean for me. Most of the items are the same. If you review the manager's report, it'll either clearly tell you if there's any updates from the previous month. If not, it will clearly state there's been no action. And for the sake of brevity, that's all I have.
Thank you. Land Preservation Committee.
I don't see anybody from the LPC here, but their meeting will be on Tuesday at 7 p.m.
Planning Commission.
The only thing I have, I know Gary is here with us this evening. The only thing we have is one lot add-on plan that we'll be discussing at the next planning commission meeting later this month. I believe the deadline's passed, Christie, or
Yes.
so I believe that is the only item for discussion on this month's agenda. Gary, do you have anything that you want to add? No? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Recreation and Parks Board. This presentation by the Brady Wine Conservancy, the Icedale Trail Feasibility Study.
Before we do that, Sheila, if you don't mind, just a brief report from the Park and Rec Board. They have scheduled a cleanup PA day on Saturday, April 23rd. It's a short 10 days from now. Beginning at 9 a.m., everybody will meet here at the Township Building, and gloves, vests, and trash bags will be distributed, and a plan of action formed, and everybody will break to their various spots for the cleanup. And there will be also a movie in the park night to coincide with the Twin Valley Little League Celebration Day on June 4. So we don't have a movie title yet or a time, but save the date. Both of those items were placed on the calendar today. And now we are ready for Sheila to give her presentation. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you. It's nice to see you all this evening, and I'm glad to be here. And along with me in the audience is Mark Gallant, representing Chester County Planning Commission. And the purpose of my presentation this evening is, in the end, to request acceptance of the Icedale Trail Feasibility Study. And I believe you have, the board members have received a hard copy of this to peruse. And so I just have a brief presentation that is covered in this handout that you have, the board has before you, and I'll just go through the slides very quickly. For members of the audience, there is an extra copy of the presentation on the table up front, if someone would like that, and we can pass it around. And this is my own personal copy of the feasibility study. If there's someone in the audience, again, I can pass this around if someone's interested in looking through it while we're doing the presentation. So, first of all, the Icedale Trail Feasibility Study was a joint project of Honeybrook Township and West Brandywine Township. And there was an advisory committee, on your second slide, an advisory committee, which is advisory committee members, with representatives from both Honeybrook and West Brandywine Townships. And this project was funded in part through the Vision Partnership Program in Chester County. And Mark was the monitor for the project. And we have received already a formal letter from Chester County that it's dated February 24th, 2022, saying that they have that they recommend the Icedale Trail Feasibility Study to be accepted by both municipalities. So that's an important step in this process. And just so the board knows that West Brandywine Township Board of Supervisors also accepted this study at their meeting on March 17th, 2022. And Dale Barnett provided a letter to that effect. So we're at the final point in the process now where we're looking for acceptance from the Honeybrook Township Board of Supervisors as the lead municipality in the project. So just for people in the audience who weren't aware, this project has been going on for a few years now, and so I thought it would be interesting for you all to hear who served on the advisory committee. So I'll just list those people. In In Honeybrook Township, it was Susan Lacey, Stephen Landis, Melissa Meadows, Ray Schaefer, Travis Stacy, Kevin Marnett, and Sherry Zinn. And in West Brandywine Townships, it was John Castles, Jack Conti, Megan Jackson, Os Marburger, and Karen Sloan. So those were people representing your neighborhoods and your municipalities. The project goal really was to look at providing a connection along an abandoned rail line between a small parcel owned by Chester County on Route 322, just west of the Living God Church, to a parcel that's known as Icedale Lake, which is owned by the Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission, but is under a lease agreement with West Brandywine Township. And that parcel is located on Icedale Road in West Brandywine Township. And the total length of the study is 2.5 miles. And this project was really born out of the Honeybrook Township Trails Committee, who saw potential in this corridor for future use as a multi-use community trail to provide new recreational opportunities for people in Honeybrook Township and for people in West Brandywine. I'll just move on to the project schedule and overview, which is the spreadsheet in your packet. And you will see that we are, towards the end of the process that began. Actually, the Vision Partnership Program contract was signed in March 2020. We had the project kickoff in July of 2020, and after a 6-month extension, we wrapped up in February of 2022. And so we're at the end of the process. So it has been a long process, I think, partly because of complications from COVID, and we've had some staff leave the Conservancy, but we've picked up, and I think we've completed just under the wire on our February deadline. So this slide just tells you the basic chapters and how the document is organized, and so I won't spend too much time on that. But I would like to mention that Appendix 1 is a fairly substantial piece of work in the sense that it's basically a standalone document that highlights a vision for the Icedale Meadows Preserve in West Brandywine Township. So that is I've got if someone in the audience is interested in seeing that. I also have a hard copy of that standalone document for someone to see. So moving on to the next slide, this is the preferred alignment. After looking at several options of where this trail could go, there were a few places where there were forks in the rail line, a few places where we had challenging road crossings and other property ownership issues. But this is at the end of the day, the preferred alignment. It primarily does follow the abandoned rail corridor, with the exception at a small section of road at where the trail will have to go underneath the road. And so in that case, it will have to deviate away from the rail line, go underneath an existing PennDOT bridge and come back up on the other side. So that's the only place where the trail will deviate from the rail line. Other than that, it's pretty much straightforward, evenly graded, already surfaced with rail ballast trail surface. So I think there are some really amazing opportunities here for Honeybrook Township. The next few slides just go through some photographs to show you a sort of a visual character of what the corridor looks like today. Starting at Route 322, just next to the Living God Church, we have basically a farm lane. And you can see some corn crops on the left. Living God Church is up on the right-hand side of the lane there. Chester County does own the wedge of land. You can see that utility pole on Route 322. From that utility pole over to the edge of the Living God Church property. And so there is enough space there for a modest parking lot. We're saying up to 10 cars. It's possible that could be expanded at some point in the future should demand warrant an increased parking capacity. And the next slide down just shows you a little bit further along, continuing east, down the farm lane towards Burdell Road, which is the road I was trying to think of before. And you'll see it's still a farm lane, very agricultural in nature, really with no residences or even the church within sight distance, and so it's a very private trail. The next slide is further along, more towards the east, towards Icedale Road, where you can see that the ballast surface is quite well prominent. It's very well cleared. There's already a trail there that's being used today by residents nearby. And it's probably, I'm guessing, a 5-foot wide surface with maybe an 18-inch sort of cleared shoulder on either side. So it's a fairly narrow footpath that certainly, if it were to be improved to accommodate more users, the surface would probably need to be widened long term. But that's the existing character today. Moving along to this slide that has three panels on it with their options of trail widths. And during the last public meeting that was held during the study, and there were 3 public meetings, we posed the question of whether the community would prefer a 5 to 6 foot pathway, a 6 to 8 foot pathway, or an 8 to 12 foot pathway. And the difference is that a 5 to 6 foot pathway is really only wide enough for 1 or 2 people to walk side by side, whereas a 10 to 12 foot pathway would allow 2 people walking together to pass 2 other people walking in the opposite direction. So it would accommodate more users. And what was clear from the voting on that in that meeting was that it was pretty much split 50-50. People were looking either 6 to 8 feet or 10 to 12, which tells me, maybe the township should consider an 8 to 10 foot wide trail in that location, and that would probably satisfy most of the people who responded to that question during the meeting. The next slide goes on to show you the surface types that the trail could have. Natural, which is what's basically the existing surface today, which is dirt or ballast in places. Stone dust, which would be an improved surface. Asphalt would also be an improved surface, or boardwalk. And in these 4 options, there are pretty substantial differences in the costs associated with these, and these are all covered in the study. But again, we put it to a vote at that 3rd public meeting, and what we heard back was that, let's see, was that 50% of the respondents selected asphalt, 42% selected stone dust, and 33% selected the natural surface. And what we heard was that the improved surface was deemed as an appropriate surface if bicycle use were to be permitted, which was one of the uses that I think the township had envisioned for the trail. So I think we're probably leaning towards asphalt long term. And one of the recommendations in the plan is that perhaps the township could start by securing the easements for this corridor, negotiating with the landowners to secure the easements. That could be a multi-year process. Once the easements are secured and the township, holds control of the corridor and has the appropriate insurance for that corridor, then that trail possibly could be opened up in a natural surface condition to foot users, hikers, and walkers. And then longer term, with some design and engineering, the surface could be improved to a stone dust, even short term, or longer term to asphalt. And so that recommendation is put forth in the study. And again, it's a recommendation, so it's, it depends on the resources and, what the community wants and moving forward, how the design and engineering costs kind of shake out. But that was the recommendation in the plan. The next several slides I won't go into in too much detail, but there are 6 segments of trail highlighted in the study, and you'll see segment 1 is only it's in West Brandywine Township, but segments 2 through 6 are in Honeybrook Township. And so it's just a description of the length for each segment, the number of property owners that the township may have to coordinate with to secure those lease agreements. It describes the existing conditions for each segment. It talks about the proposed improvements, and it describes the general alignment that's recommended, which is basically following the rail corridor accepted summary, and what entities the township may have to coordinate with to move forward on those segments. The estimate of probable costs for design and engineering and construction are also included for each segment. We did estimates for both stone dust and asphalt so that the township could decide for itself, how they'd like to proceed on that. So carrying through to this slide, this is just a map of the Meadows Preserve, which is, as I mentioned, it's owned by the Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission, but it's leased by West Brandywine Township. And the township owns or leases 36.8 acres. This is along Brandywine Creek, and West Brandywine Township also holds a lease on 13.9 acre parcel in Honeybrook Township. So there are 3 parcels, one in Honeybrook Township, West Brandywine holds a lease on that parcel. So there could potentially be benefits to Honeybrook Township residents if West Brandywine and Honeybrook would coordinate on the ultimate use of that parcel and how it's designed, and that is described in the Icedale Meadows Preserve conceptual master plan. So specifically for Honeybrook Township parcel, you'll see that the Icedale Trail is shown there in the gold line, solid gold line, just north of the Icedale Meadows Preserve parcel. And then south of that, you'll see there's the gold line with a dot on it. That is a proposed ADA accessible trail that would lead to an observation platform on the Brandywine Creek. And so residents who parked either at this end of the trail or on the West Brandywine Township end of the trail, if they were ADA challenged, they could take a wheelchair and park their chair and access the Icedale Trail and make it up to this overlook platform in Honeybrook Township, and then make their way back to their car all on in a wheelchair. So it offers something for everybody, and that is something that the state of Pennsylvania will be looking for. They look for, accessibility in their designs and future plans. So that was one thing that we can propose for that one lot in Honeybrook Township. And the next few slides are just showing some images of what that park might look like. And I know most of it's in West Brandywine, but I think it gives you the flavor of what West Brandywine is envisioning. And the east end in West Brandywine really, I think, will become the major trailhead for the Icedale Trail. It'll be a much larger parking lot. There will be more facilities offered there. So there will be parking, picnic areas, there will be interpretive signage. And so I think the majority of people who drive here to use the trail will access the trail from the east end. The west end of the trail in Honeybrook Township is more a secondary trailhead for 10 vehicles and with no facilities. Maybe some, directional signage and a map showing where the trail facilities will be minimal. So, so you can read a little bit more about specifically what's proposed on the preserve and study. So in terms of next steps, the study recommends first that the townships, well, mostly Honeybrook Township, move forward with securing lease agreements with property owners. And this would have to be negotiated with your, I believe, solicitor and in coordination with the landowners and the Trails Committee, possibly. And once the lease agreements, or even the trail easement, which is more permanent, is in place, then the township could move forward with pursuing funding for design and engineering. And realistically, I think from concept to reality, a lot of trails take in the neighborhood of 10 years to go from an idea on paper to actually people using the trail. So it's a long process that will take commitment, and that's hopefully where the volunteers on your trail committee can help to keep moving this project forward. And the Brandywine Conservancy will always be there as well to provide technical assistance, writing grant proposals, and even helping seek funding for design, engineering, and implementation. But the Icedale Meadows Preserve, I think, in West Brandywine Township, their intention is to move that along at a little quicker pace because they already have control of the property. And so they can move forward with improvements as long as they coordinate with Pennsylvania Fish and Boat. So that's all I have for this evening, and I would be more than happy to address any questions or comments.
The funding for the study, that was done entirely by grant, or was that done by the townships?
Yes, thank you. So that was done by, the total cost of the study was $25,250. The county is contributing $16,450, which is a little over 65% of the project cost. The region, which includes Honeybrook and West Brandywine Township, are contributing $6,300. So that would be split between the two municipalities. So Honeybrook then would be paying $3,150. And then Pico Green Region is paying $2,500, and that is coming from West Brandywine Township. They have a Pico Green Region grant that they're contributing towards this project.
There was a question I raised on the law enforcement for any type of patrolling for this area. If West Brandywine would be providing that, there was a question of the availability of vehicle that could accommodate that. Was that ever decided, or is that still outstanding?
That was an idea that was put forth by the study committee. In fact, John Castles suggested that as an idea, but it has never gone before the board or their.
And he's no longer on the board.
I know. Yeah, so it's definitely an idea that will have to be vetted and pursued, but it's a possible option. Yeah. And another option, I guess, the state police would be called if there were an issue on the trail. I think another means of monitoring activity on the trail is if there were, some kind of a volunteer workforce, not to confront people or challenge people about, misuse of the trail, but more just eyes and ears to keep track of, what's happening on the trail and to report back to the township what they're seeing.
There would be a cost that we would have to incur for some cleanups on our area of this trail.
Yes, and so that's at the discretion of the township. Whether do you have a public works department?
We do, yes.
Whether that would be your public works department, or whether that would be contracted out to a third party, someone who would come in once a week to collect trash or drive.
When I say public works, actually it's a road crew that
Okay.
assumes that responsibility.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure what your resources were, so that would be something you'd have to discuss internally.
Good.
Can we follow up with any questions?
Yeah, I just want to, Valerie Schultz, I'm in Honeybrook Township. I will tell you, I have used the trail around Living God Lutheran Church all throughout COVID because Chester County shut down a number of the parks. So that's the only way I got some fresh air. And I will tell you right now, there's a lot of illegal activity that goes on around that area. There's a lot of drug use that happens there. I used to go early in the morning before work, and I saw people smoking various things and doing various drugs, not only in the parking lot, but down further in the trail. The only way that I felt comfortable is I had my 2 German Shepherd dogs with me. So, but I will tell you that's a huge concern. You will have to secure some type of law enforcement patrol for that area, and asking the state police to do that isn't going to happen because right now, as it stands, various residents have had break-ins. They've called the police and they said, we don't have the manpower, let them go, let them do whatever, we can't do anything about it. So that's not going to be acceptable. It's going to be a huge risk for public safety if we don't have some sort of police, patrol in that area. My other question is, where is the parking area going to be near Living God? Is that going to be across the street, or is that going to be in the field, the farmer's field there? I wasn't quite certain from your map.
Yeah, it's in the farmer's field, basically. There's sort of a farm lane that comes in on 322, and there's row crops just to the west of that farm lane. So there's a small wedge of land just west of that farm lane that's owned by Chester County.
Okay.
And so it's wide enough to do 10 cars parking, perpendicular parking to that laneway.
Okay.
So it would be a small parking lot.
And I thought we had talked about, does this trail go anywhere near the Foxbrook development? This is on the other side of 322, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this doesn't go over into our area. Okay. Yeah, that's all I would say. I think you really have to consider very seriously the safety aspect of this trail because it's a very secluded area, and already there's a lot of crime that goes on there that the state police just can't handle. So.
Well, thank you. That's interesting. And I think, the good thing is once these parking lots become better used and more popular and more people use them, and there are more people on the trail, that will discourage some of that inappropriate use of the trail to some extent, just by having more eyes and ears on the trail. And that's been the experience from other trail projects.
My name is Jay Arndt. I live at 95 Lakeview Drive, Elmerson, PA. I'm the church council president of Living God Lutheran Church. One of the concerns we have is about the parking they're proposing. We're concerned that as this becomes more popular, more people will be using it, and they'll wind up using our parking lot, which is right there. They can't miss it. So we would like it for consideration be given to increasing that, and I have a letter that I can share with the member, and I shared it with Sheila, so thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Karen Forrest. I live at 287 Bushy Pike. Valerie already mentioned about the Living God Church. I did that as well, doing that as well. Some things I have about discussion is the American Disabilities Act. You said that they could have the wheelchair stop and walk the trail and go up to the bridge. There's many people that are wheelchair bound and can't get that way. And a stone dust trail, I can't, I'm a nurse. I take my clients out on different trails and I can't push a wheelchair on a stone dust trail, and I think everybody, whether it be you or someone with a disability that's in a wheelchair, should have a right to go through the whole trail. Secondly, have you discussed the option about, parking lights in the, where you're going to park at? Because sometimes, in the wintertime, it gets darker sooner, but yet somebody might be getting home from work and having some frustration and just want to take a walk on the trail. I mean, I would consider like parking lot, lights in the parking lot, and maybe even lights along the trail so people know, you know, that you're not wandering off and going somewhere else. And then Valerie already mentioned about the Living God Church. Okay, that's it for me. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So, parking lot.
You have that wire there.
That's the second time. I'm going to go over it again.
Your best management practice would be to have this there.
Thank you for the comments about ADA accessibility, and that's certainly something that the township will need to consider when they go into detailed design. If the stone dust surface is constructed properly, it should be ADA accessible if it's compacted and if they use the right material. But again, that's something that, you know, maybe when the time comes, the board can go see a few different trails and a couple of trail surfaces and make a decision with the community at the time. And with regards to the lighting in the parking lot, we just didn't get to that level of detail. But the next step in the process is for the township to do design and engineering for that parking lot. So that's when they, hopefully in concert with Brook Township, would decide on, you know, whether lighting was required. I kind of assumed, and I could be wrong, that the trail would be closed after dark. So lighting on the trail wouldn't necessarily be appropriate if the trail is closed. So,
But you can still sneak in there.
yeah, it's easier if it's lit. That wasn't envisioned, but again, that is a perfect topic for when you get into detailed design.
Well, you can always do like solar lights. You know, you don't have to have any wiring, just let the sun do it and light them up, you know? But, yeah, I agree. I mean, nobody should be doing that after dark.
Yeah.
Sometimes I work late and I am so frustrated with, oh, I know that, it's not safe after the Literature God episode. You know, would you put like maybe a chain up or something up, like a gate? Would that be something to consider?
Yes, and that would all be considered during the design process, the next.
Oh, great, great.
Absolutely. And same with issues concerning privacy for adjacent landowners, you know, whether fences should go up or landscape buffers, that should all be considered during the design stage.
Thank you.
Could I ask a question on that? So the question before us, to accept the trail feasibility study plan. So what does that entail?
All that is in much the same way as you accept the draft minutes of meetings.
There's no committee.
There's no commitment, it's
Yeah, I
simply
think
saying
that's
we have
what you
received
said.
the plan.
Yeah.
I believe there's a gentleman who wishes.
Yes.
Dan Lindley, 4000 Street Line Drive. I can appreciate how complicated putting a trail in, although it sounds so simplistic, can be. 5 or 6 years ago, there was a meeting here at the Township Building about extending the Struble Trail up through Huntingville Township. And at that time, the Amish community had requested to either use it as a horse path or a horse and buggy path. My question is, has the community, the Amish community, had any input into your plan? And what was that outcome? Because their argument at the time was that asphalt wasn't good for their horses, and certainly not good for asphalt, as we all know, on Huntingbrook roads. But they also wanted to be able to use, just like anybody else was going to use it, more to traverse back and forth between the farm. Now, this is a different situation as far as Struble Trail goes at, I think it's 5 or 6 miles of trail, where yours sounds like it's about 2. So my question is, there any consideration of our Amish community?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was a conversation early in the process of the advisory committee, and we did reach out as well. In addition to the advisory committee, we reached out by mail to all the adjacent landowners and specifically asked them to provide some feedback on the alignment and their concerns and comments. One of those landowners is an Amish landowner, who owns the cornfield next to the church. And the committee decided that a combined use of the buggies and horses with pedestrians and bicycles was probably a conflict of interest. And we did not hear anything from the Amish community requesting a buggy route.
So how does he get access to his fields then, unless they're planning on getting rid of them?
Yeah, so he would just need to have a parallel tractor lane to the trail adjacent to it. And, but there would be no use for buggies or horses. And that was the decision. I think I've got that right, Mark. I think the committee had decided that would just be a conflicting use.
So we'd have to take some of his land, I'm assuming?
So, the portion that's owned by Chester County is owned by Chester County, and then from that point east, the entire corridor is on private land. And so that's where Honeybrook Township will need to either secure a lease agreement or a trail easement from each landowner who's affected to allow public access on that strip of land.
So you're saying the farmer that's next to the trail, at the end of the church, you have to get an easement from him even though he doesn't own that trail?
Oh, so for portions east of the parcel owned by Chester County, he owns portions east of that.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm sorry, yeah, yeah.
Move on to the motion.
All right, I'd like the motion to accept.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila.
Thank you. Yes.
And Sheila had said that she will be in the audience if anybody would like to talk to her outside of her little talk now.
We'll move on to some new business. Do I have a motion to approve or not approve payment of all invoices prepared by the treasurer? I'll make it.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next is a zoning hearing variance application, number 2022-5, Raymond and Mary Ann Diamond, 250 Township Morning Road, parcel 22-2-9.
Yes, good evening. Everybody hear me? I just want to get the map up close enough that they can see it. The diamond.
Especially like, stand up there.
I apologize, I don't know the manager or the supervisor, but I know your solicitor and your engineer.
I'm not sure if that's good or bad. Now we know each other. Hi, Mark.
I've been working in the engineering business for well over 40 years. More than 30 of it in and around Berks County, so I've been around. I appreciate your time. Okay, the Diamonds own what is essentially a triangular shaped 7.8 acre property as referenced on Township Wine Road. It's been a triangular shaped property since at least 1963. By the deed description that was included in the 1963 deed, I'm going to bet it goes back a lot farther than that. I didn't trace it back, so I'm not going to speculate. But I believe you mentioned the Mayflower in it somewhere. Your ordinance in the Resource Conservation District requires 5 acre lots. Okay, well, naturally, without going any further, 7.5 doesn't divide into 2 when you divide it by 5. But your ordinance goes on further to say that it needs 60,000 square feet usable. We exceed that, the small, well, the lots are both 3.5 acres. One has a usable area of 101,000 square feet more or less, and the other one I wrote it down here. Pardon me. I'm old, God, have my glasses. I don't believe it's like the American Express card, I don't think we'll The other one has 132,000 square feet of usable area, more than double what's required. We meet the front yard setback, we meet the side yard setbacks, we meet the rear yard setbacks. The only thing we don't meet is the 5 acres. Now, your ordinance also has a conservation option, which allows a 2-acre lot. And Mike's here, not Jennifer, but at the planning commission, Jennifer agreed with me. I spent a year trying to meet the conservation option. But because of this unique configuration of basically a flat triangle, and I couldn't do it. I thought I had it, and then she found one point that we missed. She did a very thorough review. I would commend your engineers on their thoroughness. Nothing slipped by them. Not that I tried to slip anything by them. Don't take that the wrong way. So we were before the planning commission at their last meeting, looking for more or less a recommendation to support our variance request to the zoning hearing board, which most likely will be May the 16th after discussing it with the zoning hearing board solicitor yesterday. We have to give
An extension.
about a 7-day extension, and we have no problem giving it another 7 days. I mean, you already have so many meetings, why make more? So what I'm looking for tonight is to answer any questions and to see if we can get some support from the board of supervisors before we get the zoning hearing board.
But I think we discussed this in the workshop.
Exactly, John. We had talked about this in the workshop, if you remember last week. The planning commission did offer a recommendation of support on the variance at the planning commission meeting. So you would do the same, you would either offer a recommendation of support, no position, or opposition to the application.
Sure.
And it's pretty straightforward, it's
It is.
all I've just outlined. Any questions?
No, I think we covered it, so,
Can I just,
Yeah, you
please
do.
turn that so I can just see?
It was a pleasure.
everyone
I'll
else
give it to you if you really want.
Yeah.
We're not 100% certain if the road if the portion of Township Line Road that fronts on the property is Township Road or not.
Yeah.
But certainly we'll offer enough right away that it could become part of the Township Road, if you want us.
Some of those older records are hard to,
If you can even find them.
right.
Any other questions?
I think I'm good on this. I'll make the, is it a motion to accept? Oh, here, motion to support. I'll make a motion to support.
I'll second the motion to support. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good evening.
Next item is a motion to adopt or not adopt resolution 2022-12 for your 2022 budget reallocation.
Yes, we spoke about this actually since I started with the ARPA funds, and the final rule came out in February, and all of the agencies that kind of assist local municipalities on best practices recommended using the totality of our ARPA funds to pay for general services, as every municipality can claim a standard $10 million deduction or bill. With the board agreeing to use that to pay essentially our general funds accounts, that has left us some surplus funds that have been unallocated. So the request before you just asks to move some money to some additional items, kind of what we spoke about. I'll go over that briefly. The first one is the ScanTech document conversion, which is actually going to be the next agenda item. Essentially, moving all the records we've had since the beginning of Honeybrook Township onto an online platform, which would allow us to archive that forever. It makes it easily available to our citizenship. We can post it on our website. It's a lot more accessible. And the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania does now currently allow us to do that. The bulk of that cost is the initial conversion. We would move all those records into an online platform. We actually have that software in-house currently, so we would just move it from an in-house platform to a cloud-based, which would just be more secure. The second one is putting the fobs in for the key system. That's already been done. Moving our cellular monitoring system. Currently, we use some landlines, so for our fire and police alarms. When it rains, the telephone lines go down. Cellular networks are cheaper, we don't have to pay $400 a month for landlines. So that $10,000 for a Zoom room, essentially upgrading this so we can actually have a screen, have Zoom rooms more applicable, be able to put information that Sheila had printed out today up on the screens and allow just better citizen engagement if they want to do it virtually. It's modernizing and it's a simple solution. There's a purchase in there for our board software. Essentially, we're going to go digital with our board packets. So instead of printing out 300 pages, which essentially get used for 14 days and recycled, we would remove all of that, and that would go in line with our ScanTech online document storage. So the supervisors will be provided with an iPad, which will have a software solution on there for your board packets and your township emails on there. So this way, you only have to show up with your iPad, and no paper, email, or back and forths would be occurring. We're asking that we donate $120,000 to the Elverson Honeybrook area EMS. They're struggling because of COVID and the hospital closures. So I'm asking that we set aside that money for this year, and as they need, make requests that the Board of Supervisors agree with, we can release those funds. Asking $250,000 be put into our stormwater management projects that Texicon has identified, which would just reduce flooding and make our roads safer to travel on, especially in inclement weather. Some wage salaries to bring up our township administrative staff, not inclusive of me, just two standard salaries for their assistant positions as it relates to neighboring jurisdictions. And finally, an increase of a donation to the Honeybrook Food Pantry. I did hear and thank you whoever donated some food into the green bin outside. $84,000 over 24 months, and then they asked that they get a $3,500 a month check written to them, essentially allowing them to, for the next 2 years, 24 months out, have an additional known revenue source that will help them provide to the community. So for this year, that will be $24,000, but a total of $84,000 a year. So again, this is just putting those monies into those line items, because as it currently stood in the beginning of the year, we did not know what to do with our funds. And just good budgeting practice is to show that we are not overexpending for things that we did not expect to spend on this year. However, until ARPA came out with the final rule in February of this year, we didn't know where we should lay those additional funds, and I think these fund expenditures would benefit the community, the township, and society in general, and that I ask that you make a motion and so approve.
As far as what we're doing here, for instance, we have Gary here from the Planning Commission, so there's a sketch and stuff that's being proposed. He can go to a cloud-based solution, take a look at that sketch in advance of the meeting.
Correct. So every single board, now we have Board of Supervisors, Planning Commissions, Land Preservation. Currently, when a plan comes in, they have to submit several dozen large format files. They will now submit them digitally, and every single board member will have a login into our portal, which is essentially another front side website that's available to the public. When they log in, their board packets will automatically get notified when it's ready, and then all of the documents, as you'll see here, in our agenda, digitally will have the PDF form right there, so as you go through with your iPad, or if the members of commissions want to buy them, they can download this app and they can just click on it here. And additionally, with our Zoom room and our screen here, they'll be able to throw up those large size plans, so they're not wasting any resources. They can look at them at their own benefit. And obviously, if anybody requests or needs a physical copy, Technicon does have an architectural size printer. It can obviously print out any type of documents requested.
We have a couple questions I just want to answer. So in the event of, some of these engineering firms, they can send us a PDF and all that, we scan it in. But, you have someone from Amish community, they do not have that access.
So when they come in with their permits and they hand draw them, what we do is we actually will now scan it into our archival digitized format, right? So currently, we do a whole bunch of handwork, we make copies, we shove copies everywhere. If a plan sec member comes in with a plan, we will scan it into our system for them, we will stamp it, along with their check, they get it as their approved proof of payment and receive that we've received it, and then we will put it into that digitized PDFA form, and then it will still go into the board packets.
For larger projects like stormwater, there are engineers that work with the Plainset community on a regular basis, so they will often apply on their behalf with digital format
In
plans.
Chester County is more and more requiring us to provide them with digital copies of certain plans, so we can't even take out those copies anymore.
One of the questions, Darren, did we ever resolve that, the standard for those drawings, the scale and things like that? There was times when it was pretty much like a drawing on a napkin.
We can scan them.
Well, yeah, but did we ever resolve that as far as what's acceptable for some of those drawings? I know that was a point of contention a few years back.
Much better. It's really nice on it.
Yeah.
It kind of
We have control issues for a long time.
Yeah.
And so again, this is one of these systems where Technicon have access to the planning commission, and a lot of times they assist us with building the agendas. So a lot of times these drawings do come back from Technicon. So they will actually have the ability to log in on their end and upload it, so it's really reducing the amount of time we spend, because board packet week for 2 weeks, every time I ask Chris to do anything other than board packet stuff, I get a new book. So it'll actually just make it so much easier to do. And all those agendas, once they get approved, they automatically just open up onto the township portal website, so any community member can look at that. And I know we spoke about this at the workshop. Part of this software for the board program is any citizen can sign up for notifications for board meetings or when agendas get released or meeting minutes. And you will get a link emailed to you with a link that you can click on that will take you right to that agenda. You can save it, you can print it, you can see the associated documents if they're public.
Yeah, so then in line with what we're doing, notifications of meetings and stuff will sign up to the county system.
So county has one,
So-
but again, the board members here, as we release our packets, and again, members of the public can sign up for notifications as well, as we publish any of our meeting minutes or agendas, they will go out to anybody who signed up. And if you are a board member, you'll get the confidential section. If you are a member of the community, you'll get the version that is not confidential. Automatically, it separates it. There's no work. It's a single button, and it happens immediate. So there's no late email exchanges.
Hey, Karen, any questions?
Would you be willing to offer classes to some of us that are like technology impaired?
I will talk to anybody after the meeting, so there's an open forum afterwards. And again, as always, I'm available afterwards, so we can answer any of those questions after we move through the agenda.
And secondly, I grow a large vegetable garden each year, and I donate a lot of the fresh vegetables
To the food bank.
to the food bank.
Okay,
So-
thank you for that. We can get to the questions as long as it'll be after the agenda, unfortunately. We've had our public comment before, but I'll be more than happy to answer any questions afterwards.
Okay, so
Yep.
do I have a motion to adopt or not adopt the resolution on the budget allocation?
I'll make the motion for that.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next is Resolution 2022-9, authorizing participation in the Pennsylvania Electronic Government Consortium Local Government Legacy Data Scanning and Digitization Program.
That's it.
Are you for real?
Do I hear a motion?
So essentially, that PA Futures, essentially, they are trying to get local governments to put their documents in a cloud-based solution. Since you just voted on doing that, it's a non-binding resolution, so I was one of the, it was the easiest meeting I've ever gone to. It's a done, and done. So again, it does give support to PA Futures, which is a nonprofit looking to actually make the ability for the community to be able to search records openly easily done, and I think what we've just taken steps prior will help us do that, so I'd ask that you accept that.
And this would be a follow-up, Tracy, for the Westchester County COG. Just once we adopt this, they probably would like to see that. So I'll make the motion to adopt.
All second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. is Resolution 2022-10, supporting the PA Commission for the United States Semi-Quincentennial.
Again, that's just a PSAT recommendation, essentially the state association that deals with second-class municipalities. They think we should just agree to join in the celebration. So it's a non-binding resolution just saying that we support this motion, and I ask that you approve it.
Do I hear a motion?
I'll make the motion to support.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next is Resolution 2022-11, supporting a renewable energy future.
So this is another non-binding resolution. It's just essentially showing support that eventually our communities in the Commonwealth and throughout the country are going to have more and more capabilities to utilize renewable energy. And this is a non-binding resolution that says we will start making slow steps. And as you'll see later, or actually as you voted, one of the money allocation is to put some electric vehicle chargers out here because there is a state rebate program, so we're already taking steps.
Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next is a motion to approve or not approve the following financial security releases recommended by Technicon. Penn Lynn Chestnut LP, stages 2 and 3, which is Chestnut Ridge, parcel 22-8-52 for a partial release in the amount of $206,125 for site improvements, and for Alvin Byler, Beaver Dam Road, parcel 22-9-5.28 for a partial release in the amount of $10,529.34, also for site improvements. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next is